Anaxiunara, One Brief Eternity, by David Derosa. Prologue. She appeared in a clear midday sky and glided over the tropics of a tiny blue-white world. Having taken a mate a century ago, she was ready now to deliver her eggs. Her offspring would hatch alone on this world, as it was the nature of her kind. So she searched for a place that would be safe for them to grow without fear of predators. Where she first considered, there was a species that might pose a danger. A young species in galactic terms, they were a fairly recent development, only a couple of millions of years evolved. They resembled more than anything else the beings called elves that also occupied this world. They were different enough that she would categorize them as another species. Their lifespan was much shorter, humans perhaps. She had heard that some worlds this far out from the galactic center had spawned young human races. Intrigued, she watched for a few brief decades, never allowing them to discover her presence. They were on the verge of developing the ability to manipulate the raw stuff of life, the magic of the universe, as all sentient creatures eventually do. Though only 1 or 2% of the population thus far showed signs of magecraft. Still, they were extremely clever in ways other than magic. As much a danger as the older races, dwarves and elves, on the other side of this world. She would not chance leaving her young in their midst when there was another choice. The islands to the west had no intelligent or semi-intelligent beings inhabiting them. Situated between two great continents, the islands were far enough away from elves and dwarves to escape their notice. The humans and the scattered herds of quasi-sentient beings had not yet discovered the islands. Her babies would not be challenged there, and the land was enough to support her 12 hatchlings until they reached physical maturity. A danger existed, however, that the humans would eventually find her nest. The islands were much closer to the land they occupied, and their numbers were growing. They would expand their occupation of this world and continue to grow in their understanding of magic. There was a risk, she knew, and felt exhilaration. To live was to risk. For something to live, something must die. Even if her young were not discovered by these savage little beings, it was likely that some would not survive, would instead fall prey to a hungry star, or lose their way in the great between. She hoped none would die sooner, but there could be no certainty. She knew at least that there should be only one male. The first to emerge from his shell would find the others like him and eliminate them. That, too, was the nature of her kind. It was not in her nature to grieve over this. If any of her brood were lost to predators, she would not retaliate. That would only subtract from the balance. Vengeance was not a thing she would consider. To avenge a death by causing a death would be to serve death, and she was pledged to serve life. She would bring as many new lives into existence as fate would allow. She would show as many of her children as had strength to survive, the joys, the thrills, and even the sorrows of living. Anaxiunara would share with them the wisdom that she knew. The universe is not infinite. If it were, all things could live and none should have to perish. The potential of what may be in the universe, that is infinite. Besides, the islands were safe enough for now. She could bear her eggs and rest easy for a while. Chapter 1. The Pirate's Validad. "Steer, you idiot!" hollered Willem. "You're heading us straight into the wind!" 2 boys in a small boat with a single sail shouted at each other as they drifted into a shipping lane. It was a deep and narrow channel between 2 islands. "I'm caught in this rope," Liam complained. "Use the oars." Liam and Willem were 13 and 11 with quick minds and hearty spirits. Liam was tall and thin with sandy blonde hair tied back in a tail. At 13 he was nearly as tall as an average grown man. His brother Willem was a head shorter with a mop of curly brown hair. Willem had a knack for coming up with creative solutions to most of the trouble the 2 brothers always seemed to find. In fact, this scheme was his idea. Willem stood up, taking an oar out of its oarlock, and held it over the side of the little boat to drag in the water. "What are you doing?" Liam hollered. "I'm doing what you told me, trying to get this thing turned around." As the boat rocked and pitched, Willem lost the oar over the side. "Now look what you made me do." He went
Sample complete. Ready to continue?